Alright everybody, welcome back to another turn of Operation Schultz. This is going to be turn 6 for the British Commonwealth. I believe that is July 39. Nope, turn 6, so it'll be January 39. Yeah, January 39. Let's get into it. I've set aside the tech rolls. The ones I want to do this time are improved factories again, and starting advanced artillery. I need a 7 or higher for either of them. Hit for improved factories, and a hit for improved artillery. Fantastic. Could not have asked for more. Literally. Okay. For the buys, I'm declaring for GB 2 militia upgrades, 3 militia, and a colonial infantry. And that'll bring me to 14 IPPs of the 15 that I have in the bank, leaving me with 1 left over. For FEC, I'm spending all 6 on 3 militia. And for Anzac, I'm spending all 3 on 1 infantry. Alright, let's get into it. Combat moves first. I have some moves past this Japanese submarine. He's not going to be declaring war. I talked to 5-star last turn. I'm not going to bother asking him every turn. He's gonna want to keep his surprise attack. So the FEC heavy cruiser and the Anzac transport. Actually, I'll just switch that up. Both the FEC transport and the FEC heavy cruiser from Maharashtra are going to Suez. Well, they started in the sea zone. 1, 2. And they are going to go in port in the southern end of Suez in the Red Sea. I didn't mark them going in port. Okay. The Anzac transport is leaving that same port and moving 1, 2, 3, and going in port in South Africa. There we go. Excellent. Okay. More combat moves. Let's see here. These German submarines can attack, so anything involving A-44 except the aircraft is a combat move. So let's do those now. I made this one a different color just because this area is very cluttered and I wanted it to stand out a little bit instead of all blending together. But they're no different. They're all just regular combat moves straight around the sea zone. Okay. So the combat moves are anything moving into A-44, which means the British destroyer on escort in A-19 is going off escort and moving into A-44. Joining it is a destroyer in port in Northern Ireland. There were 2, only one of them is joining. 1, 2, and then it also has a port bonus to go 3, 4. So it can reach. Okay. Okay, yeah. And then these 2 will continue to A-44 as stated. Fantastic. Okay, so nothing else in the sea zone is moving into the territory, so nothing else is a combat move. There is a movement past these submarines. That one is a combat move, so that's a heavy cruiser from A-44 moving 1, 2, 3. Actually, I can just make that a non-combat move if I just choose a different sea zone, so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I guess I'm ready to go on to non-combat moves now. Okay, good. Okay. It's a little cluttered up here, so let's do these one at a time and make sure everything gets done cleanly and correctly. Okay, so first, the remaining destroyer in port in Northern Ireland is coming out of port and moving 1, 2 into A6 and going in port in the eastern side of Northern England. Um, the remaining 2 ships that were in port, I had them marked on the shipyard itself instead of the in-port placard because there was not much space, is just coming out of port and immediately back in port on the western side of Northern England. They're not moving anywhere else. But joining them in that port in Northern England is going to be the heavy cruiser from A44 that's moving 1, 2, 3, 4 past the German submarines. So just move this. I'll leave it out in the C zone and draw a line in white connecting the two. Okay. There's just not much space around this tiny little section of the C zone where the import would have to be to fit where it's supposed to be. So I'll just leave it out here. Okay. Yeah, and the heavy cruiser joined them. All right, so we're looking a lot neater on the board now. A lot of the lines have gone. Okay, so for aircraft, let's do the last naval movement first. That the TBD that was just hanging out in A17 is moving into A19 and going on escort and replacing the destroyer that was on escort. Okay. Now for aircraft 4GB, from Northern England, the medium bomber is flying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and landing in Gibraltar. I'll clean that up in a moment. And then a transport plane from Gibraltar is going to fly the exact opposite route. From Gibraltar to Northern England and landing in Northern England. Excellent. Okay, that is everything by the home islands. By Gibraltar, a seaplane is moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the Gold Coast. Yeah. In Southern Africa, one of the Anzac Motorized Infantry in Tanganyika is driving to South Africa. The seaplane from Cape Town is flying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and landing in Delhi. And the only thing left to cover for movements is going to be minor movements in India. Okay, so the 2GB infantry and the FEC infantry in Maharashtra are walking into Delhi. The 4 of the FEC infantry and the Anzac infantry from Benares are walking into Delhi as well. And lastly, the Gurkha that remains in Maharashtra is railing to Benares. Actually, one additional FEC infantry is going to move to Delhi. So that's going to be leaving 2 regular FEC infantry in Benares. Okay, let's place the buys. Yeah. Okay, Anzac militia, or infantry, I guess, is necessarily Oh, I did forget one movement. One Anzac militia wants to move from Sydney to New South Wales. Okay, the Anzac infantry is necessarily placed in Sydney. FEC is building 3 militia, 1 in Calcutta, 1 in Bengal, and 1 in Maharashtra. And that'll cover them. For GB, the militia upgrades are going in South Africa. Infantry. And, of course, in Lower Egypt. I'm placing the militia in Aden, 1 in Aden, 1 in British Somaliland, and the last one in Suez with the colonial infantry. So the change in Lower Egypt is add 1 colonial and 1 regular infantry. Collect income now. I should be at 14 still for GB, 5 still for FEC, and 3 still for Anzac. So, 15 in total save for the British, 14 plus the 1 that was left. 5 for FEC, 3 for Anzac. I should now be ready to pass the board off to myself for the French. If anyone is playing on TTS, no need to watch the rest of the video. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of all of my units, where they all are for our friends on their own tabletop actual versions of the game. So, start with Anzac. We have 1 militia on North Island and South Island of New Zealand, 4 militia in Sydney, 1 infantry in Sydney, 3 militia in New South Wales, 1 militia in Queensland. And then in South Australia, we have in port 1 Anzac light cruiser, 1 Anzac destroyer, 2 FEC destroyers, and an FEC transport. And that covers all of Anzac starting territory. Okay, moving on to FEC starting territory. We have 1 militia in Hong Kong, 2 militia in British Malaya, 1 militia in Sarawak, 1 militia in Bengal, 2 militia in Calcutta, 1 militia in southern India, 1 militia in Maharashtra, 2 Gurkhas in Benares, and 2 FEC infantry in Benares. And in Delhi, we have 6 FEC infantry, 1 Anzac infantry, 2 GB infantry, and 1 GB seaplane. There are no naval units to speak of pretty much anywhere in the Indian Ocean, with the exception of in port. Okay, moving on to Africa. I guess Middle East first, very briefly. There's 1 militia in Transjordan and 1 militia in Aden. And that's all for the Middle East. For Africa, we have 5 infantry in Lower Egypt, 2 colonial infantry, and 1 militia, all in Lower Egypt. Those are all GB units. In port, in the major port into the Red Sea, is an FEC heavy cruiser and an FEC transport. In British Somaliland is a GB militia and an Anzac artillery. In Nubia, there is a GB militia, In Tanganyika, there's a GB militia. In South Africa, there's an Anzac motor infantry and a GB infantry. Also in port in South Africa is an Anzac transport. West of Cape Town is an FEC fighter on map in A54. North of them in A53 is an FEC light carrier and a GB destroyer on escort. Moving north into the Gold Coast, there is a GB seaplane. Moving further to Gibraltar, I guess we'll do A44 first. We've got, I'm pretty sure, 3 destroyers now. Yeah, 3 destroyers, 1 submarine, 1 light carrier, 2 battleships, a light cruiser, a transport, all GB, all just hanging out in A44. There's a GB heavy cruiser on escort in A44. There's an FEC battleship hanging out there. There's a tactical bomber on the light carrier. He counts as on map inherently, so I don't need to put a marker under him. Alright, for Gibraltar, we have 2 GB heavy cruisers in port, a medium bomber, 4 regular infantry, 1 mountain infantry, and 1 militia. We still have 1 militia on Malta as well. We have 1 submarine in M9 that I didn't list earlier, and that covers everything in the Mediterranean. There's nothing in the South Atlantic. Nothing on mainland Europe, of course. Alright, in Northern Atlantic, there's a destroyer on escort in A18 and a TBD on escort in A19. In London, there is still an infantry and a militia. In southern England, there are 3 militia. In northern England, there is 2 militia, an infantry, a fighter, a transport plane, a destroyer in port in the shipyard to the east, and a heavy cruiser, a TBD, and a transport in port in the shipyard to the west. All of that in northern England. In Scotland, we have 2 GB infantry, 1 GB militia, and in port in Scapa Flow to the north, 1 battle cruiser, 1 CDS, and 1 light cruiser. And we have nothing in any of Canada. Alright, that should cover everything. Gonna go ahead and end the video and start drawing up some plans for France. Once again, I'll have to take a close look at what's available for Germany and what I want to do to try to make him take the maximum number of losses in France. As always, France is just a losing battle. It's not going to go well next turn, assuming that's when he invades. Alright, passing the board off to myself, and I'll be recording in less than 30 minutes, I assume. Be right back.